Senator Menendez from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For years, I have watched and listened as my constituents and their families have suffered irreparable financial harm at the hands of their student loan servicers. Year after year, millions of borrowers are mistreated by the student loan servicers who routinely provide inaccurate information, fail to disclose and explain fees that are charged to borrowers, and ultimately make it harder for borrowers to pay off their loans. This is especially true for our nation's public servants who have often served as frontline workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Cumulatively, these missteps cost borrowers millions of dollars in interest and additional payments. And in some cases, borrowers have no choice but to remain in the workforce beyond their preferred retirement timeline just to pay off the loans. What's upsetting to me is that this current mess was preventable. The Department of Education has known about these systemic issues for years. Its own Inspector General found in 2019 that despite regularly identifying instances of servicers' noncompliance with the terms and conditions of the loans, the Education Department did not track or analyze these failures, nor did they hold servicers accountable for their poor performance, especially servicers of loan in the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. That failure to act means added financial pain for the borrowers we're talking about here today. Beginning in at least 2009, when the first federal student loan servicer, Affiliated Computer Services, better known as ACS, began servicing student loans, there is a documented history of the company's endless errors, especially related to its handling of PSLF qualified loans. So, Mr. Pierce, your organization released a report in 2020 detailing ACS's repeated failures. How specifically did ACS mishandle borrowers' accounts, and what kind of impact did that have on borrowers, especially on the PSLF borrowers?
Thank you, Senator Menendez, and thank you for all of your leadership on these important issues over the course of more than a decade. ACS was a very important market participant going back to the earliest days of the student loan program as the sole student loan servicer for the federal government in public service loan forgiveness's first years, but also as a major market participant servicing federal student loans that were then owned by big banks like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan. This company committed more than 5 million individual errors on borrowers' accounts over its time as a government contractor, and was the target of enforcement actions for its private sector servicing by attorneys general in New York and in Massachusetts and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. All told, ACS is responsible for many of the underlying problems that resulted in 98 out of every 100 public service workers applying for PSLF ultimately being rejected.
98 out of 100. Now, will the limited PSLF waiver that expires in October, as well as ED's most recent forbearance waiver announced last month, rectify all of ACS's egregious missteps, especially those related to the PSLF borrowers?
It's a start. More than 100,000 public service workers have had their debts canceled since October. That's about 7 times more debt relief than the prior 14 years of the program. But it's not enough. There are certainly public service workers who are going to miss out on this limited opportunity because they don't know about it or because they've been provided bad information even now by their student loan company about what their rights or options are.
Well, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, known as FEA, or by its other names of Fed Loan or American Education Services, replaced ACS as the largest servicer of PSLF loans in 2014. So, Mr. Pierce, Massachusetts and New York recently reached settlements with FEA about its student loans servicing, especially its PSLF servicing. How did FEA, acting as Fed Loan, mishandle borrower accounts?
A whole range of different abuses by this company, which, to be clear, is a private sector company but was created by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and has existed with the implicit backing of Pennsylvania taxpayers, despite this record of abusing its customers. It routinely mishandled borrowers' paperwork, provided bad information, steered borrowers into forbearance, the same scheme that Navient was accused of by a different group of attorneys general, and taken together, these abuses resulted in the collapse of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program before Joe Biden stepped in to make things right.
So will the limited PSLF waiver in the most recent forbearance announcement rectify all of FIA's missteps?
Once again, it's not enough. Joe Biden needs to cancel student debt for everybody because these piecemeal actions are important and necessary in their own right, but they won't reach every borrower that's been wronged by this legacy of mismanagement and abuse.
Okay. Thank you so much for your responses.
Thank you, Senator.
Thanks, Senator Menendez.